Hi, Dr. Reagan Robertson, CCO of Productive Dentist Academy here, and I have a question for you. Are you finding it hard to get your team aligned to your vision, but you know you deserve growth just like everybody else? That's why we've created the PDA Productivity Workshop. For nearly 20 years, PDA workshops have helped dentists just like you align their teams, get control of scheduling, and create productive practices that they love walking into every day. Just imagine how you will feel when you know your schedule is productive, your systems are humming, and your team is aligned to your vision. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. We can help. Visit productivedentist.com/workshop. That's productivedentist.com/workshop to secure your seats now.
That is part of being a leader, is you have to model that. You have to model the behavior you want to see. So, I mean, it's as silly as if you want people to show up on time, if you want everybody there at 8:00, you better not come waltzing in at 8:10 every morning. That's not going to fly for very long. That's really an integrity piece, which I think ties in with that, like trust. But those are all those culture pieces that you create. So if you want to create a safe and open environment where it is safe and open for people to share when something kind of goes wrong, you do have to model that.
Welcome to Investment Grade Practices Podcast, where we believe private practice dentists deserve to get the lifestyle today while building an asset for tomorrow. Join your host, Victoria Peterson, to design the practice of your dreams and secure your financial independence. Let's get started.
Welcome to this very special edition of Investment Grade Practice. And on the last episode, we talked with with Reagan Robertson, who has held many roles within the Productive Dentist Academy. And I thought I would continue that theme with Kashmere Fitch. Now, many of you know Kashmere's work, even if you don't know her name, because she is our podcast producer, but you're so much more than that, Kashmere. And we had a great conversation last night with our private members group, and you were accidentally the star of the show. And it was just such a great conversation about culture. And you bring an incredible viewpoint from an employee standpoint that a lot of times owners don't get a window into what employees think about with their team, right? And so welcome, Kashmere Fitch, to this episode of Investment Grade Practices.
Well, thank you very much for coaxing me in front of the microphone instead of letting me hide behind it.
Tell everyone what your official role is, because I know you've held several, I don't know, how many jobs have you had with us over the years?
Maybe 3, 4, or 5, something like that. I'm a PDA's event and podcast producer. So if you see a webinar, if you hear a podcast, if you attend one of our events, I'm involved in all of that.
And involved meaning it wouldn't happen without her.
Well, something like that.
So to give all of our listeners a background, when you think about dental consultants in our industry, you're typically thinking about a singular person who has a small company. Maybe they have, some support personnel. But Productive Dentist Academy is different. We have up to 40 employees at any given time, depending on the season and how we flex, because we have a full ad agency that builds smoking hot websites. I think we have the fastest load speed and the most accessible websites in the marketplace. But we do that, pay-per-click, radio, TV, streaming on Hulu, just all kinds of stuff for our clients. And we found in 2011 that it was time for us to stop doing marketing strategies and actually implement the strategies. So we have a huge marketing team. We also have the client-facing team of our coaches that go out in the field. And we have our educational team that helps us build online content. So it's a very complex organization. And we have gone through some changes just like everyone else. And I think that was refreshing for our clients last night to hear like, oh, PDA is a company just like our practice is a company. And Victoria is a leader just like we're a leader. And she makes mistakes and our company makes mistakes. But it's not that will you make a mistake or not, it's how you recover from it. And so I'm giving Kashmere total permission to say whatever, like just speak truth here today about the ups and downs of PDA. And I want to kind of get into culture a bit, because it's culture is just, it's hard to define. It's hard to wrap your hands around. So, from your perspective, Kashmir, what is culture? How do you know? How do you know the culture within an organization?
Well, I think the culture is very much something. It is the people. I know that might sound a little bit on the simple side, but it is the people, how they show up, and how they interact with each other, and how they react to each other. So, for example, if you have a culture of, oh, what's the one that we like to talk about a lot? A culture of trust. Well, there's behaviors that are aligned with that issue of trust. So what are those people when they show up, when the people show up in trust? Well, what does that mean? What behaviors are they showing? Are they exhibiting? If there's a problem that happens. So like a great example, we'll use examples, we'll tell stories. If you've seen any of our marketing, any of our marketing emails, I probably touched it. I probably was in charge of making sure it was written, it had all the pieces in it, and then got sent. Well, for those of you who work with software, you know that software doesn't always work how you want it to. And for example, we had something glitch within our software, and I didn't really know what happened. So I went to Reagan Robertson, who is our chief communications officer, my boss, and was like, "Hey, look, this glitched. This happened. This did not go right." And she kind of laughed and said, "Yeah, I saw that something went wrong, but I trusted that you would fix it, and you were going to fix it." And that's a really, really tangible example of culture. Something went wrong, and Reagan, one of our leaders, reacted to that with calmness and trust that I would figure out what happened. And it takes a potentially stressful situation and makes it really, really calm. So I think that's a really and a really good safe place to be as an employee, because you know within that culture of trust that you're not going to be blamed for something that goes wrong. You have permission to go figure out what happened and then to fix it and bring it to your leaders.
Oh man, I love that. Have you ever worked in a place that wasn't like that?
I did. I my previous job before PDA, I was in a company like that, and we'll use the email software again as an example. And oh yes, that software glitched too. And when my boss figured out what had gone on, she got very angry and she got upset because she didn't know what was going on, and made me upset and made me very defensive. And actually, if we're going to be really super honest here, that was something that I had to work on when I got to PDA, was not reacting in anger when things happened that went wrong. Because at my former job, it was not a safe environment. It was not a place of
Mm.
trust. So when something went wrong, if I got angry, people would back off so that I could fix the problem and then bring them the solution. But at PDA, because there's that environment of trust, I know I can, if something goes wrong, I can go to our leadership and say, "Hey, this went wrong. Here's how I'm fixing it." And I can ask for help if I need it.
Yeah, that's you're mine. So many golden nuggets. So that was a big topic we got into last night is what is the owner's role? What is the leader or the manager's role? You just pointed out that you worked in an environment where trusting people to fix their mistakes was not present. And so you hide your mistakes because you don't want to get yelled at. Who wants to get yelled at? Um, and then you've got to come and learn what the new culture is, and then you've got to adapt and change your own triggers, right? So
Yeah.
we all have these emotional triggers and this emotional. Uh, I used to call it baggage. Now maybe it's just gifts. We have these emotional gifts
Gifts. There we go.
that we
Emotional
bring
gifts.
that we bring with us everywhere we go. And for me as a leader for a long time, I just wanted to fix it for everybody, and I would because through my degrees in spirituality and life coaching and emotional intelligence and positive intelligence, I think I've studied every intelligence there is, right? So I would have one-on-one coaching sessions and I'm going to mentor people up. And while all of that is really good, what I was doing was denying accountability. Like I was taking on
Yeah.
the accountability for the mistake instead of saying, thank you so much for sharing. Now, what will you do about that? Right. So, in some ways, I feel like in the past, I was creating codependent relationships.
Right.
Um, so, I, you gave us such a big nugget there. So, building, like, decide what the value is. What is the core value? So, in your example, building a culture of trust, then what are the behaviors that show up with trust? And you gave us some examples that it's a safe, open environment to take a failure bow and say that it goes so well. And then your manager trusts that they can work with you on solution, right? And that's going to happen.
And I'm really glad you mentioned that bringing up that failure bow. We talked about that a little bit last night, and I love that concept. For anybody who doesn't know what a failure bow is, it's essentially saying, "Hey, everybody, something went wrong. That was on me. Letting you all know what happened. I'm fixing it." And you take a flourish of a bow, and everybody takes it, claps for you. You all smile, you laugh. You fix the problem and you move on. It's a very safe way to say, because nobody's perfect. I mean, even with our best intentions, things do go wrong, but it's a really good way to allow people to take ownership of when something goes wrong. Hey, everybody, something went wrong. Should have been me. That's on me. I'm fixing it. Won't happen again. And you, Victoria, and Reagan model that. And that's a really, really key piece of
I take failure bows on the daily.
on a daily. And that is part of being a leader, is you have to model that. You have to model the behavior you want to see. So, I mean, it's as silly as if you want people to show up on time, if you want everybody there at 8 o'clock, you better not come waltzing in at 8:10 every morning. That's not going to fly for very long. That's really an integrity piece, which I think ties in with that, like, trust. But those are all those culture pieces that you create. So if you want to create a safe and open environment where it is safe and open for people to share when something kind of goes wrong, you do have to model that.
I love it. I love
Ziva.
it. So, is that your pup?
Sorry about that. We'll have to, hey, Rick, we're going to have to edit this out. Ziva, come here.
Oh, I think not.
Ziva. Okay, she's outside now. Sorry about that.
Okay. So, I want to talk about, because this is where, like, I see doctors, especially right now, healthcare as a sector. Any business that is brick and mortar that requires people to show up on the daily is not very popular with Americans right now. Like, we have no problem. We put out, accidentally a classified ad through Indeed for a graphic designer. I needed to open it up to get one resume in, and I forgot to pause it. So it ran from Friday afternoon until Sunday afternoon. And then I saw a text from Reagan saying, turn it off. We had 391 applications in 48 hours on an accidental post, right? So virtual is very popular. We don't have a problem attracting high quality talent, but there is a huge difficulty attracting talent in dentistry right now. So the turnovers, especially clinically for assistants and hygienists, finding qualified administrators who really understand dental billing and medical billing. I mean, these are highly specific, high-skilled jobs. And it seems like the employers are walking on pins and needles, like, just don't piss off the employees. I don't care how bad she is. They're breathing, and, they can hold
They're
the
breathing
suction.
upright in here. That's all I want.
That's all I want. But there is let's see if I can find this article and bring it back out. It's called The High Cost of Low Morale. And I wrote that, I'm going to say, in 1996, and things have not changed. So talk to me about what happens to high achievers and peak performers on your team when owners tolerate poor performance with others on the team. Tell me about that from your perspective.
Well, when I feel silly saying this, but when you are a peak performer, when you are somebody who is a hard worker and wants to do a good job and wants to be focused and that A-type personality that is like, let's get the job done and let's do it right. And let's make sure everything is taken care of. When you see team members and teammates who are either allowed to slack off or get away with pretty like bad or damaging behavior, it can be very demoralizing as an employee, as somebody who's working at a company, because you wonder, wait a minute, I'm putting in all this time and effort and work into this and all this care and dedication, and my teammate who's putting in no effort, complaining about everything, showing up late, and really refusing to do what they really should be doing, they're getting paid the same as I am. So why should I bother to continue working this hard when I could be slacking off and getting paid just as much? And then you start wondering, you know what? Maybe my talents and efforts and work ethic would be better appreciated elsewhere. So I think that is something that a lot of leaders and don't necessarily understand the damage you can do to your really good employees if you tolerate bad behavior from other employees.
What is that phrase that's so popular right now, like the great slow down or the quiet quitting? Isn't that the
Yeah, I
popular
think it's
term right now?
quiet
The
quitting. I think you're
quiet
right. Yeah.
quitting. So you just described quiet quitting. Like I'm showing up and here's the fun part. Your really bad employees smile to the boss. Oh my God, I love working here. This is just the greatest place ever. You're wonderful. So the boss, I think, gets in this place of, and then the team is going, oh my OMG, and rolling their eyes and like, you've got to be kidding me, because drama queens really know how to play the game. And I say drama queens because dentistry is so highly skewed female,
Right.
but they, particularly if you're a male boss, little girls start playing how to bring on alligator tears with their daddies when they're 2 years old. So the crying, the tears, all of that. I'm not saying that the emotions aren't real, but it is a tactic to trick your boss. Is a tactic to get out of accountability sometimes. And other employees notice that. That's what I'm hearing you say, Kashmere.
Yeah, they do. And like you said, it can be kind of stressful thinking like, oh my gosh, I don't want to, confront this bad behavior, or I don't want to deal with this. But, I for anybody who doesn't know, I coached a high school robotics team for 3 years. I was a head coach, and we had a lot of teenage emotions rolling around, as you can imagine.
Well, wait. Before you go, though, tell them where your team's placed.
We were world champions.
Yeah.
And,
so she's a world champion robotics coach. See, that's the other thing about peak performers. They don't brag on themselves. So I'm going to brag for you.
Well, thank you. But the students did a lot of the work too. And there were a lot of other adult mentors. It was definitely a team effort, but you have there were some bad behaviors, and I had to address those immediately. Of no, you may not speak unkindly to so-and-so. I don't care how stressed out you are. That behavior is not acceptable. I don't care if you're a team leader. In fact, I care more because you're one of our student leaders and you need to be modeling the way. So here's this behavior is inappropriate. Tell me what's going on. Tell me why we're having this conversation and tell me how we can fix it. Because if you allow that behavior to go on, and there was one situation I allowed to go on a little too long, and it caused damage, and we lost people because of that, because people are not going to tolerate that kind of behavior. They will leave.
Yeah. Wow. I was going to ask you the question, but you're already giving the answer of, what would you tell bosses, when they're in this situation? And your first clue was raise the bar when you see bad behavior and say, I expect more from you because you have leadership potential, because you're a key member of this team. I expect more. So What else
Yes.
would you tell?
Yeah.
What else would you tell bosses? Give us the 1, 2, 3 on
Gosh, one, two,
how
three.
to like you've helped us like define the culture in a general way, right? So there's key characteristics of how you expect people to show up. Now, how do we address that when people aren't matching our values?
I think the first thing to do is if you really do see a disconnect between the behavior that you're seeing and the behavior you want, the first thing is to sit down with that person and ask them why you think that you might be having a conversation, because people are a lot more intelligent and we're working with adults. Let's remember that too. We're working with adults. People usually recognize when their behavior is off. And usually I didn't used to be this way. I used to be a little bit more like, oh my gosh, get yourself straight. I mean, there is still a part of me that wants to say, slap them upside the head, get your act together, knock it off. But there usually is something else going on. If you're seeing a behavior you don't want or like, there's usually a reason why the person is acting that way. So let's say you've got an employee who's angry and spouting off, and well, there actually might be something really stressful to them that they don't know to bring to you until you actually sit down and go, hey, something seems off. Talk to me about what's up.
Yeah.
And then once you do that, you do have to, define okay, look, this is why we're having this conversation. And then as you move forward, that kind of step number 2, I would say, is you keep an eye on that, because I do believe in grace. I do believe in second chances. I do believe people, need an opportunity to step up. But then there are some people who don't want to or who are unable to step up. And then I would say, then you're looking at it, hey, look, so-and-so, this is the second time we've had to have this conversation. What would you suggest we do to modify these behaviors? Because this really is not acceptable how things are going. And then really the third thing is, sometimes you do have to let people, what does Bruce say? What do you guys say? To let people find their happy place.
Right.
Encourage people to find their happy place, which does mean, in maybe less kind terms, is it's time to let them go, because you've given them the opportunity, you've supported them, you've walked with them on their journey through this, and for whatever reason, they are either unable or unwilling to model the behaviors that you need. So at that point, it is time to let them go, because you have to mind your culture. So doctors, dentists, this is your office and your culture, and you have all of your patients and your team, your whole team, not just one team member to be responsible for.
Such a mic drop. Such a mic drop. I'm going to reflect this back because it's just so good. And, yes, we do believe everybody should find your happy place. So honestly, if ever I'm unhappy with an employee, like chronically, not just like in the moment, but you just see there's usually a disconnect, like you were talking about, and the employees aren't happy either. And you can feel it, even in a virtual company, you could feel it 3,000 miles apart over Zoom. You can feel it because we're energetic beings, right? And so what you were speaking to is sometimes people don't have the capabilities, right? Or they don't have the capacity. They're running so hard. The team is short-staffed and people just run out of hours and days and brain power. And so we're always looking at capacity. We've hit the Inc. 5000 4 times, not because we're sitting around doing nothing. We are always stretched like a rubber band in growth mode. We love growth mode. It's a chaotic mode. And we have to be very careful about capacity. And like I periodically call people and say, you are on mandatory PTO. Get the heck out of here. And we'll deal with it.
I don't want to talk to you for a week. Go unwind.
Right. So it takes a lot of strength as a leader to be in the conversation with people and say, is this the right place for you today? And so getting back to this fear of it's so difficult to find people, we don't we don't address bad behavior, and then it gets worse. It's a cycle that is a downward spiral, that builds on itself.
Yeah.
One of the things we talked about last night was how to get out of that spiral. So I'll give you my top 3 things, and Kashmere,
Yes.
you can just say, does she really do this or not? Perpetually look for talent. Always look for
Yes.
talent. Don't stop advertising. Don't stop looking. Have the growth mindset within your practice. Have your role descriptors, the pay bands, the interview questions, like set that up. I was going to say in a quiet time when it's calm, but that may not ever come. But set aside the time to get every role. Like in our HR system, I have almost every role now loaded in that system. So as we grow, or people go back to school, or they retire, or they have babies, all of that stuff comes up. All I have to do is click launch. And now we're back in the market, and it goes out to Indeed for free. So you've got to have a system for recruitment and onboarding.
Yes.
So that takes away the fear of, oh my God, what will I do without this person? I lived in that fear for so long. And when you have small teams, like a typical dental office, 5 team members, 10 team members, everybody's so crucial. Change is so hard. So number one, be organized in your HR system and be prepared to always, look for talent.
And, within that, I think it's also, really important too, to make sure that people are set up, your organization is set up so people can take a break. So if you've got, 5 columns holding up the house, if you take away one of the columns, the whole thing doesn't collapse.
Right.
That the other ones can take the load for the week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or month if somebody's, gone either ill on PTO or has a, random accident that happens. It's very important to make sure that you are set up so the whole thing doesn't collapse if somebody has to leave.
That comes to the rule of 3. And we're starting to get there in our company where at least 3 people are trained on every system.
Yes.
So 3 people should know event planning. And right now, that whole thing is on your shoulders. We can take parts and pieces of it. But in the interviews, like for team development coaches and marketing consultants and things like that, I'm finding people who have event planning experience.
Yep.
Tyson, who just joined our team, has event planning experience. Yes. So now you can start sharing the load. It doesn't mean we're coming for your job, but it means that we're going to grow and we're going to build teams of competencies. So I think that's a great thing for employers to look for. What are the competencies of the role, not just the title of the role?
Yes.
Because every role title has so many different ways it could be implemented. Oh, Kashmere, this has been a great topic. Thank you for helping us see from an employee standpoint, what happens when you tolerate bad behavior. I want to end with you sharing, because, PDA has gone through some transitions. The pandemic was difficult on all of us. We were a half in-person team with 28 people working in a 4,000 square foot building. And within a week, the building cleared out and no one ever came back. And we went down to 1,000 square feet where we put together all the beautiful boxes that we, send gifts and things. So that was a huge change in our organization. It rocked us to our core. Culture didn't hold steady during those times. We didn't have as much safety as you're describing today. So from an employee's perspective, what happens when leadership takes culture seriously and brings it down and threads those behaviors, threads the value through the behaviors, through the role descriptors, through everything that we do? What does that look like when the leaders have the courage to do that?
I think it creates that touchstone that you can go back to when things do get, what do we like to say, when they get crunchy, when they get uncomfortable, when they get uncertain, is if you model those behaviors that making it a safe place where you're open, and you keep the lines of communication open. You, Victoria, and Reagan, our leadership is very, very open and honest about what you're doing, and where things are and how they might affect us. So you're right, things are a little chaotic right now, or you're right, they are changing. And you ask us, you do treat us like adults. We're working with adults of what would you like to see. So when you go through those, and you guys have taken culture so very seriously, it fosters an environment of trust. So we know as employees, you're taking it very seriously. You approach it very calmly as well. You come into those meetings and into those points of sharing very, very calmly. So we know when you model the way, then we go, oh, we don't have to panic right now. They're not panicking, so we don't need to. And because you've taken so much care of the culture, it's taken time. I mean, I think you would agree it's taken time, and a lot of effort on your guys' part. But if you are truly, this is investment grade practices, and if you truly are interested in developing a durable business that will last in the long term, it's worth it, because I think you guys, you've put so much effort into the culture that as the company grows and changes and positions change and things become a little, murky, and before they clear up, you have a culture where your employees trust you and contribute because they feel that they are part of something bigger.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. And for those who don't know, our company is an ESOP. That means we have employee stock options, and Kashmere is my partner. She doesn't work for me. I think I work for you. And I'm always behind, particularly with my podcast. But it is something that I appreciate you helping us make this more tangible. Someone asked last night, what is the difference between a cult and culture? And for me, a cult is when you have a singular mindset and
Yes.
you mandate that people are indoctrinated into that mindset. So usually led by very charismatic leaders that have something to give to the people that are following them, right? So there's usually a wound or something of that
Right.
nature that
Yes.
people feel vulnerable, and this person has come to save them in some way. And then there's a singular mindset, and it gets really weird really fast. Culture, on the other hand, is where you can foster an environment that is healthy, where everybody can contribute their opinions. And that's one definition of culture, but it has multiple viewpoints, and it has traditions that are shared. It has, we've got a lot of fun, quirky traditions. We start our meetings. We start our meetings with some banging music, and we've got so many. We do. We give everybody the clap, right? The clave clap. We have spirit animals
Yep.
of the year. Our
Yes.
culture is just it's fun, it's dynamic, it's engaging, and all of that has always been true. What has made the difference, I think, is putting the structure and committing to the
Yes.
structure of culture. And that's what we talk about a lot through coaching is how do you connect your core values to your HR system?
Yeah.
How do you do employee surveys that allow the employees to tell you the real and not have any repercussions for it? Like all
Yeah.
of those things. For me, if you're listening all the way to the end, I'm going to tell, I have repeated it 15,000 times this year. It is the new frontier of competitive advantage.
Mhm.
Your employer net promoter score, what your Indeed profile looks like, your Glassdoor profile. And if you look ours
Yes.
up, we look pretty pitiful right now. We have nothing out there. We need to work on this ourselves. So I think that's why it's top of mind. Kashmere, you're the best. I'm going to bring you back as a guest again because you are giving us so many pearls of wisdom and great insight from employees' perspective on leadership.
Well, thank you for having me on here. It's fun to talk about the inside of PDA because we practice what we preach, and I'm happy to share that. And it's been a journey, but it's also thank you Thank you for all the effort and the time. I mean, that's just part of your job. You've got about eight or nine different hats you wear. Well, maybe 90 different hats you wear. And so thank you from an employee perspective. Thank you for the time and effort you've put into that, into creating a company that is a really good place to be and does really good work and takes care of the employees. So thank you.
Oh, mahalo.
Mahalo.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Investment Grade Practices Podcast. If you find value in this episode, help us spread the word by passing it along to a dental friend, subscribe, and give us a like on iTunes or Spotify. Learn more about building your investment grade practice at productivedentist.com today.